we are running What Should Curating Do lecture series that is part of our educational program. And we have been running this educational program from the last year remotely since November. And we are slowly closing the program. This will be the last month. And our mentors, it used to be a tradition in the last 3 years, would do a workshop with participants, but also present public lectures. And we continued this due to the pandemic online. I just want to locate myself, and it will be great that if you also do and write in your chat from where are you at least zooming from, that we know where are you. But I'm currently in Melbourne, and I would like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land where I am, of Wurundjeri and Bunurong people, and pay my respect to the eldest past, present, and emerging. Today's lecture is co-organized together as a whole lecture series with Duke Kunshan University, and is also co-streamed together by CCALT, a platform based in Belgrade, Serbia. And today we have a guest from Jakarta, Farid Rakun, and I'm going to introduce him. Farid is trained as an architect, and as he says in his bio, he wears different hats, depend on who is asking. He's a visiting lecturer in the architecture department of universities in Indonesia. And he's been also part of artistic collective Ruangrupa, and he curated a number of projects, including Sonspeak 2016 in Arnhem in Netherlands, including projects in Centre Pompidou Biennial, in Venice Biennial, MCCA Seoul, Sharjah Biennale de Sao Paulo, Harun Farocki Institute, Dutch Art Institute, Creative Time, among many others. And he has worked for Jakarta Biennial in different capacities since 2013, and currently serves as its advisor. Today, Farid is going to share with us an initiative that they're in the middle of preparing as part of upcoming documenta in 2022 called Lumbung. That is the planetary network that is described and is as initiated to put particular values into practice, such as sharing, humor, generosity, independence, and locally anchored, to name a few. And as this is part of the collective authorship, I'm going to briefly introduce ruangrupa that Farid is member of. It's a Jakarta-based collective established in 2000. It is a non-profit organization that tries to support the ideas of art within urban and cultural context by involving artists and other disciplines such as social science, politics, technology, media, etc., to give critical observation and views towards Indonesian urban contemporary issues. Ruangrupa also produces collaborative works in the forms of art projects, such as exhibitions, festivals, workshops, research labs, books, magazine, online journal. As an artistic collective, Ruangrupa has been involved in many collaborative and exchange projects, including participating in big exhibitions from Guangzhou Biennial to Singapore Biennial, Sao Paulo, Aichi Triennial, and many others. From 2015 to 2018, Ruangrupa co-developed a cultural platform, Gudang Sarinah Ecosystem, together with several artist collectives in Jakarta, located in Gudang Sarinah warehouse Pancoran, South Jakarta. It is a cross-disciplinary space which aims to maintain, cultivate, and establish an integrated support system for creative talents, diverse communities, and various institutions. It also aspires to be able to make connection and collaborate to share knowledge and ideas, as well as to encourage critical thinking, creativity, and innovation. The results of these joint collaborations are open to public access and presented with various exhibition, workshops, discussion, and other formats. In 2018, learning from their experience, they establishing Gudang Sarinah ecosystem, and together with Serum and Grafis Hurahara, Ruangrupa co-initiated Good School, and we had interaction with them a few days ago. Contemporary Art Collective and Ecosystem Studies. Good School, in short, pronounces as a Good School in English. It is a public learning space established to practice and expand an understanding of collective values such as equality, sharing, solidarity, friendship, and togetherness that I guess in the times of separation that we are experiencing are more important than ever. So Farid, thank you for your time. We're going to record this lecture, and Farid is going to share ideas of Lumbung for around 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and then we are going to open to questions. So please type the questions in the chat of Zoom or in Facebook. We'll try to answer them. Thank you. Thank you, Farid.
Thank you, Biljana and Aigerim as host. Thank you for having me. Also, thank you everyone for being here. I'm from Jakarta, located in Jakarta right now. Haven't been able to leave the country for a year now, for better or worse, which I think maybe it will serve as a subject as well for discussion tonight. There is like a call for prayer behind me, and then excuse me for that, and then maybe one point that's also going to be like barking dogs, because like downstairs there are 5 dogs who hasn't had dinner time, so excuse me in advance for that. It's turning night in here, so for me like selamat malam or good evening from my side. I think I'm going to use this opportunity which Biljana generously offered to delve right into Lumbung, actually, to say what we are doing or how we kind of like think about what we can do in line with Documenta 15, although we kind of like imagine it as an extension of what we're doing anyway, and then so it goes beyond the event of the 100 days in next year. So I'll share my screen, and then if I have time, I'll delve into like some what do you call it, retroactive things. So just like, you know, how ruangrupa started, or Gudang Sarinah, or Good School, etc. But it all depends on time. So I'm going backwards, let's say, in order to explain what I'm trying to explain this time. So as you might know, some of you might know already by now, like Lumbung is a word in Indonesia. It's not ours, it's vernacular, so everyone in Indonesia like know what Lumbung is actually. Their understanding might be different from one another, but it refers to a building and also a practice of restoring harvest. A lot of times if a village has Lumbung, then it's like the village collectively govern that storage as well as the building itself. So that's where we're coming from, and then we're using it. We have been using it since 2015, actually, the term. And then we learned from, not only, this is not our invention. A lot of people have been using that term as a metaphor as well, or as concept as well, not really building physically a lumbung, but we have been trying to experiment, to try to how to govern resources together, at least since 2015, when we kind of like gather together and form something we understand right now as collective of collectives. So it's not only ruangrupa, but also other collectives being under one roof, and then collectively govern a lot of things together, not only money, but space, even knowledge, even members. Like before 2018, I think, when Good School was open, we were planning to get ruangrupa much more in the background. So like for myself, for example, of course, I came from ruangrupa, my history from ruangrupa, but it doesn't matter whether I'm still ruangrupa or serum or grafis ruhara or video, you know, like all those kind of stuff. But I think like that's the moment as well when the finding committee of Documenta 15 at that moment, who were looking for the next director for Documenta 15th edition, approached us, and then also asked us whether it's okay to even think about us, not for candidacy or whatever, but just to talk between themselves, whether it makes sense to propose ruangrupa to be a candidate at that moment. So it was proven at that moment that ruangrupa as a banner is still useful. So right now, it has also kind of like have a different life, the banner of ruangrupa, let's say, in relation to Good School, especially, which is fine also. Like we're open to that kind of like organic and improvisational approach of life, because life cannot be predicted in advance, let's say. But what we're trying to do with Documenta being part of our ecosystem right now is trying to not play, at least because we cannot do it anyway. We cannot play the usual role of artistic director. So we want to gang up together with other initiatives from all over the place, who act, especially those who were also kind of like have a similar faith with us, relating to Documenta, which is kind of like, we're not that close to begin with. Like Documenta and ruangrupa were not like we're not a natural match, let's say, because like most of us never visited Documenta, for example, and we know Documenta happened and it was important, but we never thought that it would play a big role for what we're doing anyway. So we're looking for other friends who are like that, because I know we know that our experience is not exclusive. Then if Documenta is a resource, how can we further also like share it with others who we want to share it with, let's say, who has like what Biliana said before, who has that in their practice, those values, because we broke down Lumbung into values, those values of like humor, generosity, sufficiency, independence, etc., are practiced in everyday basis. So it is a network, and then it's kind of like we again, like what I said before, I think like our approach is to kind of like to take it as it goes. So the blueprint is not that clear from the beginning. So we kind of like, we invite people and then talk to them and then move on, and then we extend the invitation to other groups of people and then move on again, you know. So also like several things we develop as we go. So we kind of like see Documenta 15 as a very important stop, 100 days in 2022, a very important stop in our journey together with this kind of like initiatives, and then from all over the place, in order to figure out what can we be in the future, let's say. And then how we work with others is actually kind of like this illustration helps me think about how to explain it. We might cook something, but it's also based on the ingredients being brought to the table by other people, not only us, no? So we are kind of like inventing what we're cooking as we go. This approach can also be seen as departments as well in usual, like, you know, in normal exhibition biennials or something like Documenta. So we kind of like not see the exhibition as the most important thing, and then every department as supporting a system, but we kind of like at least trying to talk about a lot of stuff in the beginning, so it as soon as possible in the process, so the product itself, which can be considered or understood as Documenta 15, is imbued with a lot of things. Sustainability is one. Sustainability, I'm talking about not only environmental and ecological, but also sustainability in every artistic practice. So dealing with precarity, etc., for example, and then public program, education and guides, mediation, how we treat publications as well, and how we treat the process of assembly, what we call majelis in our language. It's Arabic. So how the process in itself is already actually can be considered as a process of lumbunging, no? So it's a verb. Then the 100 days of Documenta 15 can be considered as like a public celebration of this lumbunging process. What can we harvest at that moment? Although that's not going to be the final harvest, not the only harvest, but it is a harvest already. And then let's share it to the public and celebrate it, let's say. That's how we think about Documenta 15, how it is going to be. And then up until now, again, like maybe some of you have known, we have announced 14 Lumbung members who are working with us already. So those are the initiatives. But soon, I think, like in either like in like next month or in May, because next month is still April, the latest, but in May, we're going to also announce artists. So not only members, which is more than artists, they are artists as well. Of course, they're going to present their work in Documenta 15 in Kassel, but they are also thinking with us about like how to sustain this network together, these initiatives together. That's called Lumbung, at least to begin with. The name can change anytime, actually, if it makes sense. But these 14 Lumbung members, we kind of like, we have started to map what type of ingredients they can put in the table, and then to put it into practice. For example, good school, question of funding from Palestine have a very active radio program, for example, and then they want to continue with that. And then as Documenta 15, we can use it for our publication channel or initiatives naturally. So something like that as well, like Choco from an area in Colombia is considered to be a school by Mas Arte Mas Action, one of Lumbung members. And then from that, we see it as a seed of a bigger educational program for Documenta 15. So something like that is kind of like happening right now. So it's all these resources, these skills, this is kind of like shared together, not making like a collection of solo exhibitions sometimes, because sometimes if I visit biennials, if we visit biennials, it feels like that, like it's a collection of exhibitions that's trying to be solo exhibitions, but like jumbled up together, or even like what do you call it? Pavilionization of certain things, either themes or context, geographies, etc., etc. So that's what we're trying not to do by mixing a lot of things together. It is kind of like this. That's why I think like even the process is not clear cut. Let's say it's because like imagine a metaphor that we often use is like playing a football game, you know. But if a football game is not binary, not like winning and losing, but with more than one goals, maybe the point of playing is actually not winning or losing or scoring as many goals as possible. Maybe it is becoming something else. What it be, it could be like, you know, a beautiful game is one, fair game is another, entertainment is also kind of like another one. So it opened up to each players and other people who are involved in the game, no? Yeah, but this is kind of like how we explain the process of what we have come up with up until now, right now, you know, because there's a lot of like meetings, of course. So at least if you ask me right now, Zoom fatigue is real because we cannot travel yet, but we have to keep on keep the ball going, let's say, because we were invited to become like the artistic director of Documenta before pandemic time. We were planning to, so we envision Lumbung to be like, you know, a preemptive or a preparation for a crisis, but then the crisis came sooner than we expected or everyone else is expected. So actually, like, instead of slowing down or postponing, we realized at least the practice in itself needs to be done sooner than we thought. So it's kind of like faster. We were asked to move faster because of conditions instead of slower, let's say. And then for now, it can also be understood. This is kind of like what I touched upon before. I think like if Lumbung is a journey, I think Documenta 15 as the 100 days in Kassel is a very important stop, which kind of like form the sensibility, the affinity, the experiments as well together, because we do a lot of experiments actually, each of us as well as when we are together. But the stream of river, it's not going to end there, but like our thinking is like it will have an afterlife after Documenta 15. What that afterlife be is something else. I think like none of us can answer it with one answer right now, which is a good thing. Everyone has a different desire maybe by now, because for example, one of Lumbung members, Trampoline House, after being announced being a Lumbung member, they are forced to be bankrupt by the system that they are in Copenhagen, Denmark. So kind of like the desire change even in the process of making Lumbung, you know. So but hopefully they share this view of mine, which is kind of like, it's fortunate that they are a part of something like Lumbung, so they are not alone anymore. So we can rethink or think together, not only as Trampoline House, but Trampoline House and other people on what could be an afterlife of an institution like Trampoline House when they're forced to shut down. Yeah, something like that. Maybe for now, I'm going to stop sharing here and have a cup of water first before I continue. But if I still have, I still have time, a little time more. I want to share where we're coming from, maybe because maybe this will be useful for some. I'm sorry if some of you that have met me or have heard me before, that you've seen this before, some of the following presentations before, but I think we never can assume that everyone knows what ruangrupa is, let's say, or where we come from. So I always find it useful to share it with other people. Hopefully the screen is shared. You can see it, everyone? Yeah. Okay, so maybe it's a bit scattered. Wait. Not that one. Okay, maybe I'll start from the latest. So this is the opened in 2018, the latest iteration actually from ruangrupa, let's say, if you want to understand it from ruangrupa's perspective or genealogy. But this is not only us, as I said, there's like other two collectives that initiated this good school initiatives with us, called Serum and Grafis Suruhara. We all have different type of approach and sensibilities, let's say. Like for example, ruangrupa sustain ourselves before good school and up until now, a lot of times using like proposal writing for foreign fundings, for example. Serum and Grafis Suruhara never did that. They found new ways to sustain, including building businesses like art handling businesses or printing businesses, etc. And then even from the economical model, it's kind of like different. And then, but we work together a lot way before we built this. And then because of that, we kind of like decided. And then even in the process also, not only these three collectives from Jakarta, kind of like we had some other collectives as well joining us in the process, but for Good School as an initiative, only these three made sense, let's say. So we also have a piece of property right now. It's only like recently, as I said, in 2018, this small piece of land is ours, but it was founded because it was very expensive to rent space in Jakarta, and then it has become even unhealthy. More than 1/3 of annual budget of each collective are actually spent on rent. So that's why we felt the need to stop paying rent and then free that resource to be used somewhere else, let's say. But for other contexts, it might be different. We realize that, like, having said that, I think like Lumbung itself also, like we never think that it is a magic pill that we can answer a lot of questions, especially challenging questions that are posed for everyone right now globally. But we're just like trying to answer it from the context where we're coming from and the sensibilities it has cost, as a byproduct. We have that sensibilities because of where we're coming from. And then from where we're coming from, it's kind of like, this is the way we do things. And I think like by inviting other Lumbung members to work with us, so far what we felt is like humility, because like we know that we can learn from other types of practices as well. And then it's just like it is kind of like a place to hang out, of course, being hit hard by coronavirus, because a lot of our sensibilities were formed by ganging up bodies together in one roof, which, as everyone knows right now, it's not a possibility any longer for a long time. And then it is kind of like an informal education platform. That's how we understand good school to be. Why educational? Because like we realized that we've been dissatisfied with artistic education in particular, or education in general, in where we're in Indonesia itself for a long time. We're not saying we want to replace the system that is already there, but we want to provide a parallel possibility, or something that can complement the stuff that has been offered by the formal educational system. And then what we know is actually like collective and ecosystem building. So that's what we're trying to share as well. And then seeing ourselves as a resource, space resources, knowledge, history, spotlight, network, etc. And the best way we found out, or we thought, the best way to share ourselves is actually to turn ourselves into an educational platform. From that slide, I want to share, I think like this is what Biliana said before. We found good school because we experimented with this one. This is the Gudang Sarina ecosystem, a big warehouse complex, which we took 2 of them. One of them is like 3,000 square meters. So we have like 6,000 indoor space, let's say. And then at this moment, we gang up with other collectives, a lot of collectives in Jakarta, and then try to occupy it. It lasted for 2 years only, because we had to still to pay rent, and then the rent is actually like made us bleed very, very much at that moment. For 2 years, it happened in 2016 up until 2018. But this is the moment when we experimented with that, like collective governance, which in the end we called Lumbung. Also like how to play with the notion of longevity, financial longevity, by dealing with other kind of like skills to keep us all afloat, so music is always one of our main interests, at least in Indonesia or in Jakarta. Ruangrupa is not known for our exhibitions, but much more in our concerts, let's say, the concerts that we held. And then we rented out the space, and then we kind of like learn how to be collective of collectives, how to be transparent financially between each other, so we can actually like build trust between each other without actually making a superstructure out of everything, let's say. So still structurally still decentralized, but in much more coordinated way, let's say, because if we streamline certain things, we don't have to waste a lot of effort as well, and energy and time, etc. So that's Gudang Sarina. And then we learn about institutionalizing ourselves, if you want to call it that way, by hacking something like this. This is Jakarta Biennial, which from 2009 up until 2017, this is not a ruangrupa project, but a lot of ruangrupa as individuals were involved in the happening of in the editions of Jakarta Biennial with different kind of capacities, of course, but it is not a ruangrupa project because it was founded. The biennial was founded by Jakarta Arts Council in the 70s. So in 2009, we were only like a part of it, being an artistic director, but since then we found that certain things need to happen. So our artistic practice and also learning were complemented with learning how to run an institution. Let's say how to make an international biennial. Something like that, let's say. And then we learn by doing Jakarta Biennial. It's actually kind of like bureaucracy or a system or infrastructure and structures are actually like a byproduct of certain ideologies. So if you want to put like collectivism, collectivity, etc., because that's what we know, that's what we have been enjoying making. If we want to do it, then the system that's supporting us and our events also need to be kind of like different than usual, than like those events whose mandate is to support individual practice or art market or all those kind of stuff. So I think we learned it from doing Jakarta Biennial since 2009, since 2017. Right now it's not ours, and also like only one or two people from good school are involved, but mainly people are not involved in that anymore. Sorry, I think like last one I want to share with you is this one. Now this one is this is about ruangrupa. So from 2000 and 2000 up until 2014, which kind of like, I don't know, it kind of like we started as a group of either just graduated art students who just graduated, or other disciplines. Like myself, came from architecture. So we started on the street because Jakarta is a very expensive city for our standard. So there's not that many artists can afford to have a studio in Jakarta. So one is the street became our space. Second, either the street or a desktop computer. So it's like media art, video art, etc. So the scale is kind of like different from the understanding of art practice because of that context, let's say. And then because of that, we learn how to use space. We rent a house and make it more public, like a lot of other collectives in Indonesia. If you've met other collectives in Indonesia, I think like it's kind of similar. So we rent it and then we make galleries inside it. Sometimes we don't turn it, like we didn't call it gallery per se, but like we just exhibit over there. We make markets, for example, in order for us to conduct certain research of certain interests that we had at that moment. And then we also build events because like Jakarta 32, workshop for art critic and curators, Video Festival, for example, because at that moment we were interested in something. For example, maybe in this context, it's good to say, curators at that moment in 2007 in our ecosystem, kind of like a new species. We didn't know what to do with it, but we know we need it. And then there's not that many curators at that moment as well. The school were not there either, like the curating program at that moment. So we just like make a workshop because we want to learn also from other people. So we make events in order for us to afford being able to invite people from whom we want to learn from, as well as not only people, but also work of art, let's say, because we always think about work of art as something that is knowledge producing materials anyway. So that's where we're coming from. Like we build infrastructures, let's say, for ourselves because no one give it to us, so we make it ourselves. One thing that is kind of like worrisome sometimes with thinking about the future is like hopefully we will never lose this ability to do stuff from the ground up like this anymore, especially after a comparatively big budget event like Documenta. And then this is where what you see is like the National Gallery. This is a space, it's called National Gallery, but it is kind of like comparatively easy for us to actually use this type of spaces being young at that moment, because the hegemony of institutions were never that strong anyway. And I think we consider ourselves to be lucky that way. We're never alternative as a consequence, you know, because there's no mainstream. So that's why we're never alternative. There are a lot of other streams, but there's no alternative and main, I'd say. And then because of that, and I think maybe it's because we come from Jakarta, where like a lot of fast-paced people, busy with themselves, etc. Like it's okay for us to have parallel realities. So like, for example, like that formal education, and then what we are trying to do in good school, it's okay not to be antagonistic towards each other. So it's actually kind of like give a lot of people choices, and then they even don't have to choose which one is better or which one is best, but actually taking everything and then choose for themselves, let's say. And then only after 2007, a lot of like international art scene were interested in inviting us to make like inviting us as artists, let's say. This is one of them for Asia Pacific Triennial in Brisbane. And then we make kind of like semi-fictional museum about music. The Kuda is a name of a punk band from Bogor, actually existing right now. But we created, or like we fictionalized their history as if they have an influence in 70s Australia and the politics of Australia in the 70s. Then we kind of like launch their albums. We make Australian bands play covers of their songs, all those kind of stuff. So we mix all those kind of stuff because we're just interested in supporting these initiatives, let's say, connecting dots together, which were not there to begin with, maybe. For Sao Paulo Biennial as well, it's kind of like we work with other artists in Sao Paulo because this is kind of like maybe almost the furthest point we can reach geographically. So we couldn't pretend that we knew anything about Sao Paulo and Brazil. So we just like landed and open our space, the space that given to us by the biennial, and then look for collaborators in Sao Paulo themselves, and then we found some from artists, etc., and then we just fill the space with events, exhibitions, as well as you'll see the tent after this is like a silent karaoke program, which is kind of like, so people can hear you say that you're singing, but only you can hear the music. So it's kind of like in the opening it was kind of nice. So you can hear people singing out of tune in the middle of this kind of like grand space for modern and contemporary art exhibitions, you know. So demystification like that. And yeah, I think like I've talked too much maybe. I think this is it from me. Let's continue with the discussion. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Farid. So please type your questions in so I can read them just for recording's sake. And maybe while we are waiting for questions, maybe I can ask you, Farid, to talk a little bit more about the system of working together within Lumbung, about the structure of the Lumbung participants, and I think there's things that kind of reappears in your talk about transparency, collective governance. I have made a note, possible horizontality within the relationship, etc. So I don't know if you could share more the mode of working within the Lumbung and
yeah. Yeah, we started with of course with like let me phrase it this way. Okay, we begin with trust, let's say, you know. So that's why I think like some of the people we started to work with, the artistic team themselves, for example, or like some of the first Lumbung members are the people who we worked with before, because our understanding of networking is not always transactional. Actually, like if we can, one of the tests for us in order to know whether we can trust someone or not is actually when we don't have a purpose to be in, but we still want to waste time towards each other. So that's a good sign, you know. So that's how we begin with, and then again, maybe in this way, being a collective is not the best way to do things if you are for effectiveness and efficiency, because like there will be a lot of times wasted in not making any decisions, for example. That's where not everyone can work that way. So that trust is good. So we know some people, then we know some people that we are curious about, that we haven't been able to be in touch with. Then we kind of like use this opportunity to do so, you know. And then with them, we kind of like build little by little the steps and the protocols together. Right now we have like every 2 weeks we have an assembly or a majlis, we call it, where everyone is or it's an invitation for everyone to be present. Sometimes not everyone can be present, which is fine, you know, because silent is as much as appreciated as being loud, you know, if not more. And then in that kind of like, besides those 2 weekly meetings when we kind of like talk about certain things, there are working groups as well. Like we work with groups on, let's say, on website, you know, or on a certain theme about like publication that we want to do, or we want to address a certain theme like para museum, for example, or para institution. Then, or there is something like one very interesting thing, maybe it's like a working group entitled "What is art?" Because that's kind of like a question, or where is the art actually? Because that's a question that has been asked to us so many times since 2000 actually, to be honest, if you want to be honest, since 2000, where is the art of what of the stuff in the stuff we're what in the stuff we're doing, you know? So we want to take that question more seriously right now. So kind of like the working group is there. So and then working also, this is kind of like invisible, but in the institution, the documenta GmbH themselves as well needs to be worked with, you know, because we want to translate what's possible for them, what's impossible from them for them, and then how we envision bureaucracy or the lack of bureaucracy, you know. So we have to deal with it, and then this is a long time coming. I mean, like we might not be able to do it successfully, but alas, we have to do it. If it's not now, then when, you know? Also, like the question of funding, for example. Then we have, if we want to be transparent with each other, everyone actually have the capacity to understand everyone's projects. And then also the translation of like how much money it costs, let's say, so they can be generous. The test of generosity is there, no? Like self-limitation as well. No, this is what we need. This is enough for us, being sufficient. And then if we have more, then we can give to others who need it, let's say. How it's going to be done, it's still in the process, of course. It's not easy at all. It's not always walk in the park, tension rise every day, you know, all those kind of stuff. But that's what we know, how to do stuff. So by being transparent, I think like the relations to funding, for example, also got a different light, let's say. If someone from whatever, you know, from, let's say, France, someone from France can get a certain amount of funding, but then someone from Mali cannot, let's say. Can we actually like be fair towards each other? So it's not going to replicate the power, the economical power, all those kind of like geopolitical power that it entails, no? Again, like we are starting to talk about this with funders. Conceptually, it's easy for them to understand. To put it into practice, it's always a challenge. So that's kind of like the things that we are starting to roll, which is nothing new as well. Like we have started to talk about that a long time, like at least since 2010, you know. But the difference right now is like we have Documenta as a resource. We come as a artistic director of Documenta, so we utilize it, let's say.
Thanks, Farid. I have a few questions for you, and I'm going to start reading. The first one was from Els Opsumer. Hello, I was wondering if you could give a little more explanation how you can empower or translate this collective and in a kind of organic way of working towards a big art event as Kassel and the network and interest behind.
Yeah, I'm sorry I cannot see all the chats because like it's filling up. So thank you very much, Juliana, for reading that one. I hope I understand the question correctly. It is kind of like that question came up from our side, when the invitation, the first invitation, even like before being a candidate, came to us, because we just opened Good School at that moment, and then it's kind of like a group of kids who just like got a new toy, so we want to play with it. Like our energy was really, really high in playing and experimenting with Good School. But then, so we thought like, okay, Documenta came, and then of course it's something we never thought about, being involved with Documenta. So we gave it some time actually to simmer down. Because like, again, like for you who know Indonesians or who are Indonesians yourselves, like it's really hard for us to say no, because it's considered to be impolite, no? So one of the options is actually not to say no, but with a way of saying no, so not saying blatantly no, but like saying we're busy with doing this, but it makes sense for us maybe if it's actually an extension of what we're doing anyway. So that's why we made that invitation back to Documenta, explaining where we're at that moment, and then inviting back or challenging back, like whether they're interested to be part of this journey. If they're interested, then let's go. If not, then it's like, okay, then life moves on, so then it's kind of like we knew it's a long shot anyway, but then when we got it, honestly, I just like remember again, for a while I didn't remember this, but when we got it, actually, like for me, I was speechless for a full day, because like I couldn't envision the near future, what it could be, and then of course excited, but like also worried about a lot of stuff, but knowing that actually what we're doing is not a new project, but it is kind of like what we're doing anyway, it's helpful for us. And then also like for everyone that's involved, including even artists as well, individual artists that are involved in Documenta 15. That's what we ask them to do. Like, don't envision something new just for Documenta, but we want everyone to use this opportunity as a stop for their journey, for their longer journey, So either like a project that you are already embarking on, or this is an easy translation towards that, like or something that you have been dreaming about but you haven't been able to do, all those kind of stuff, but something that actually propel you to the great beyond, let's say, to the unknown. Then you're like it's time to think deeper in time as well, like longer, because hopefully we can sustain a lot of things, a lot of practices as well through this. But on practical level, on day-to-day basis, I think that is a good question, because understanding collectivism conceptually and then understanding it by practice is two different things. Although those who have understood it conceptually and then support it, when it comes to the time of practicing it, including myself, I have to be honest, a lot of times it's challenging. So that is the beauty of it, let's say, for me, for us, like then we're proven as an individual, we're proven to be wrong a lot of times by our colleagues that we trust. I think that's a privilege that not a lot of people has. So I think that's kind of like where I'm going to end this time.
Thanks. Catriona Maddox asks, how can creatives join your Lumbung? Is there an open call? It's invite only. We are a platform called Borneo Bengkel, collective of collectives throughout the island of Borneo. We greatly admire your work and would love to build a relationship with you.
Thank you very much for the question. Two things, I think, no, not two things, but it's good to think about things differently, maybe that way. One is Lumbung, which will go beyond 2022. The other one is Documenta 15 itself, no? Like with Documenta 15 itself, I think like we're very, very busy right now of completing the process of choosing things, you know, stuff that, because we're limited as well, even we are a lot of people, we have limitations. So we have to be honest about that and self-limit ourselves, so we cannot take everyone that we want to take, even, you know, for Documenta 15. But I think like what we've done, because like some people have sent us their proposals as well, unsolicited, all those kind of stuff. Just be sure that we're keeping tabs on all those things, although we haven't been able to reply to everyone right now. I think like at one point in the future, especially when our time is much more generous again, let's say, because right now it's very, very hard. I'm sorry for that, but then we can revisit it again, and then also like working, I think like it would be nice for us actually to see other initiatives springing out everywhere as well, that we can learn from also, not necessarily coming from us a lot of times. At least from Ruangrupa, that's the case. That's why we use this opportunity to learn from other models of practice as well. Not necessarily in our way of practicing. So I hope it starts answering your question. But like, yeah, there are ways to contact us, even the Documenta 15 website. I think it's not that hard to find our contact. But yeah, excuse us for being limited for now as well. And thank you.
Thanks, Farid. I will conclude with the question from Ludovica Matarozzo, and I have to apologize for the other questions. We don't have time to reply because I'm trying to keep an hour, and we are already, and I apologize to many colleagues. I see many familiar names. The question is, and I think beautiful one to conclude, interaction with public and the community in a physical way seems central to Ruangrupa's project, but how to maintain this interaction in the pandemic time? Do you think it's possible to find new ways to interact with the body of the audience?
I think it is possible, but for ourselves, our case, we haven't found the ideal way to do it. For us, I think like Zoom, for example, is very much built upon meetings, like, you know, the sensibilities of meetings and making decisions effectively, efficiently, all those kind of stuff. That's why, like, you know, the squares are not squares, rectangles. The space, the translation of space into this platform is kind of like not ideal yet. But we're trying actually to, this is again, knowing this, there are other platforms that we've been experimenting with. Not every platform right now, of course, have like its minus and plus sides. But what we realized as well is the importance of ownership, in the sense of like non-ownership even, like, you know, like a lot of our projects right now are being streamed with Facebook, YouTube, Zoom, what have you, you know, like what have you, Instagram Live, etc. But then the owner of those platforms, we realized as well, are actually like the one benefit from it. imagine if there is a platform that's owned by more people, or not a corporation, but collectively owned as well, collectively governed. So everyone here, for example, that has already like been generous enough to give their time, can have an ownership. I don't know how to translate it practically yet, but like of the platform itself. So this initiatives of this discussion is owned by more people than it's owned right now, you know. So I think like unless something like that happen, let's say reinventing the dream of the first internet, unless that happen, I think like it's difficult for us, ruangrupa, to say that we should do the digital turn fully, let's say, although it helps, of course. What cannot be, what we miss so much is actually being with each other in proximity. I think like call me old school because I am, I think, but at least for us, we haven't been able to find a new way to do stuff, to do so, you know, like when our body cannot move, then a lot of our sensibilities just stop working. So I think like younger collectives who are natives, like digital natives, I think have better answer than us in that sense. And I'm personally like looking forward to learn from that, because up until now, you know, the talk about NFTs, for example, has been like fall flat, at least for me, talking for myself, you know.
Thank you so much. This was great. Thank you all for coming. I think we will conclude here. And I just want to thank my dear colleague Agrim Kampar. And I want to invite you for the lecture that we have tomorrow, that is part of our curatorial program by Xian Zerong. And he's going to talk about improvisation, which I think it kind of nicely connects with today's talk by Farid. And please, we just had announced a 6-day symposium that starts on 22nd of the project that we've been working silently or in intimacy with different partner cells across the world. And this will be the first public moment announcing the project, our mode of working and research that has been done in the last year and a half. So thank you very much, Farid, one more time, and wish you all the best and stay safe. And thank you all for joining. Grow care, and I hope to see you tomorrow.
Stay healthy and happy. Thank you very much for having me, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Farid.
Thank you.
Anna. So see you tomorrow.
Thank you.